I didn't like school. That wasn't my thing, right? I know you're very educated, Mike, on the other hand, right? But it's not that education that got you to where you are. It's your tenacity, right? And I just think that why do A students work for C students, that whole myth or theory or whatever you can call it. I think there's a bit of truth to it, not a lot, but there is some truth to it. And that truth is this, that people that are A students, a lot of times it's because they don't want to fail. So they work really hard. So they don't want to look bad. They don't want their parents to look down on them. They don't want their teacher or their peers to look down on them. So now when they get in the real world, they don't want to get looked down on. So they're afraid to fail because they're so used to excelling in academics, for example. And then they have those challenges in being an entrepreneur because you can get a job where it's safe, apparently, or you can start a business where it's nothing but risk. And they're afraid of that failures.
This is the Alden Report.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be Wicked Happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, my name is Mike Alden. We are here in Blue Bay Studios. I'm rocking a little bit of a different sweatshirt. This is like really bright. It's a yellow Wicked Happy shirt, hoodie actually, and I'm also wearing my hat. But look, it's starting to get warm out, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull this off much more. But I tell you, I'm super excited for my next guest. My next guest is a Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling author. He's the co-founder of a company called Experior Financial Group out of Canada. His book, You Can't Fall Off the Floor, is one of those books that I was just telling him before we went live that you really can't put down. I read almost half of it last night. I started reading it last night, and I've known this guy for a little bit while. His name is Jamie Prickett. Look, his story is just truly inspiring. I think that's why I was reading it last night. I feel like I just needed some additional inspiration. I'm super excited to have him on. Please help me welcome Jamie Prickett. Jamie, thanks so much for being on the Alden Report.
Hey, right on, man. I appreciate this so much. It's pretty exciting. I'm pumped to be here.
Good, man. I'm pumped that you were able to jump on. So look, your story, you and I have talked a few times offline. We know each other a little bit. But I didn't know like your story, about, kind of the trajectory of your business. And, when I was reading your book, I just the way it's written, I felt like I was there, when you were telling your stories. I'm just going to jump right into one story where you caught it in the beginning of your book, where you tell this story. It's you and your wife, and you're driving this beat up car, and you're on your way to an award ceremony, and the muffler falls off, and you have no money in your bank account, but yet you're going to this award ceremony for what you've been doing, most of your career in the insurance space. Let's just start there. Let's start with like the beginnings of of your career there, and we'll just flow. We'll see how it goes from there.
Yeah, for sure. I got recruited into the industry in 2001. I was 21 years old, but unlike a lot of, younger folks today going into business, I wasn't living with my parents. I didn't have any sort of background education. I was working in a factory for 3 years right out of high school. And a friend of mine got into the industry, got recruited, and then he came over to my house with his trainer. And all the trainer said after they gave me this pitch on buying life insurance and stuff like that, because I had a mortgage, I had my first child. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I guess I need life insurance. And so I bought a policy. And at the end of it, and I think the guy was probably the world's worst recruiter in the business, because he didn't even talk about the opportunity. And even though it's kind of a multi-level type deal that they had there, but at the end of it, as he's basically leaving the house, he goes, oh, by the way, we're looking for some good people to work with here in the Guelph area. And they were coming down from Toronto, and Guelph's about an hour outside of Toronto. And he said, we're looking for some good people to work with that are entrepreneurial, that, maybe aren't happy with where they are. And I was like, right here. You've been talking to him for the last hour. I ended up going to a meeting on a Tuesday night at 7:30. There was 100 people in the room, and they were talking about you can make six figures and all this. And I just fell in love with the industry initially because I saw it as a gold mine. I was like, wow, I'm going to make all this money. Fast forward 10 years, don't have a house anymore. I still have my children, of course. And we were in a bad financial situation. We were just plugging away. And I believed in the dream that I was sold 10 years earlier. And I guess 10 years later, I stopped believing in the dream. I started doubting whether I was cut out for the industry or not, despite getting so many accolades and different things, presenting on stage and things like that. I was still broke. My situation was a mess. And I didn't know if I was going to sell cars, Mike, or what I was going to do, but I knew I had to make a change. And so I ended up getting talked to by a guy that was also with that company for 18 years. So my ears were open because he had left a year prior. And he sat down with me and my life changed. I said, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this great industry than what I'd been maybe led to believe all those years. So that's kind of our start in this journey. The first 10 years were hell. The last 10 years were hell, but at least it was going this way. So
yeah, they say most people's overnight success takes them about 10 years.
Yeah. I was a slow learner. It took me a little longer, but we got there.
I hope we have a lot of time today because I have so many questions for you. But, in your book, you talk about your company, Apparel Financial, and the culture that you've built. And you talk about how, a lot of what you guys are doing there are, really changing people's mindset. Not even necessarily, learning the industry, so to speak. Let's first change. And right in your background, I see an original copy of Think and Grow Rich, I believe right there. Right. I think I could see that. Yeah. So talk a little bit about mindset, because, when you describe the story, like I mentioned in your book, and it just grabbed me because I think every entrepreneur that I've met has been there, sometimes more than once. Right. And you just feel like your world is collapsing. You had more going on, even with the car. I think you had been divorced prior to that. You had some family issues, financial. Like you said, your world was in this really tough spot, but yet you figured out a way to break through and to change your life. Talk about mindset and how important that is just in any business.
Yeah, well, thank God for some great wrestling coaches when I was going through high school. And then after high school for 3 years competing at a high level, it was drilled into my brain that I needed to eat, sleep, and shit wrestling if I wanted to be successful. So when I got into business, it was kind of like, hey, I want to win. I got to eat, sleep, and shit business. And over time, it took me a while because I always heard leaders on stage talking about, your life's going to be out of balance for a period of time. And my wife and I thought, well, if you got to give everything to business and then sacrifice your family at the same time. I've been married now for almost 11 years to my lovely wife, Leanne, who I have a whole chapter on in the book. And really, I could write the whole book about her.
But we refer to you as the co-founder. She's the other founder.
That's right. Yep, exactly. And, with the business world, I find that so many people just want to learn the technical part of it. They want to learn, what kind of software program should I use and what type of product should I offer and all this stuff. And that's a piece of the puzzle. But just like sports in business, 90% of winning is the 6 inches between your ears. Thank God the first company I was with, I bought into that as well. Although not having the big success that we had dreamt of, I really think I got my mindset right on, achieving my goals. Even when I left that company or was debating on leaving that company after 10 years, be it I was looking at other business ventures perhaps, but I still felt like I had the right mindset to win. So I never felt like a loser, even though I was losing on the outside. I still felt like a winner because I conditioned myself to say, hey, I can do anything I put my mind to, and maybe this isn't it. So maybe it's something else. Turns out it was the same industry. It was just that we had to build our own company that did things right. And that's what's taking place. We're seeing a lot of great people have great success. I always say I'd rather have someone that shows up, because 50% of winning the battle is just showing up. It's like exercise, Mike, if you're anything like me, it's one of those hard things to stick to. But if you can just get into the habit of showing up, that's the biggest battle. Because once you're at the gym, once you're on the treadmill, your ass is going to start running. You're going to start pumping those weights. The problem is showing up. So I had the mindset that I can show up to anything. And that's what I did. I just kept showing up every day and putting in the work. I was never a guy that could book 20 appointments in a day or talk to 500 people, but I consistently did it every day. And that's what I show agents. It's that you got to give yourself time to fail. If we were going to try and lose some weight right now together, Mike, we're going to, start busting weights.
I got a lot I got to lose, brother.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I look good from this part up, but if you and I went to the gym and we looked in the mirror the next day, I know I'd be looking back at a tub of goo in front of me. Even though I just went hard for a whole day, I could work out for 3 hours. I'll still look like the same guy. And it's not seeing those results that causes so many people to fall off the success ladder because they expect it too quickly, and just like your business that you've had monster success in, I don't even know much about your background coming up into the business world, but I can guarantee you probably fell on your face more times than you can count to get to where you are right now.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up. And I was going to ask you that question, when you think about, you're with this company where you kind of learned the business, enjoyed the business, but didn't have real financial success. And then you make the decision to start your own company, but that wasn't the first time you had to do that because you experienced some challenges there. Talk about, some of those challenges that you had and, and what that was like. Cause when I was reading it, I was like, man, like this guy who's just keeps getting, I say I get kicked in the nuts all the time, but you got kicked in the nuts a few times too. Tell me a little bit about, or tell our viewers and listeners about that kind of decision that you made. And then what it felt like when you realized, oh geez, things aren't going the way they should.
Yeah, that was the biggest blow in our business life. Matter of fact, the only negative thing I've ever posted on social media in my life was right at that time. This is just over 10 years ago, or just over 8 years ago, I should say, right before we launched Experior. But my wife and I, about 6 months after leaving what I'll refer to as the practice company, where I'd spent 10 years, we ended up becoming independent brokers and then launched our own company. And we were really a part of another company, but we were branding our own, and we were looking eventually to get direct partnerships with the different insurance carriers in Canada at that time. And then 6 months into that, we were starting to have some success. We were making more money than we've ever made before. We were able to buy our first home together. So things were going well. We had 4 children. We're a blended family. Things were going well. And then these 3 jackwagons, I call them, they came up to us and said that they wanted to partner with us. And they had the infrastructure, the payroll system. They had everything figured out that we didn't have yet. And we married into that. We gave up 75% equity in a small venture that we had. It might have been a $500,000 valuation by this point. It wasn't anything, that big. But we gave up 75% because we believed everything they said, and we didn't do any due diligence. We just trusted them. It was the stupidest mistake we could have made. 15 months later, I went into a board meeting with them, and I brought my wife. She was a part of this meeting as well. The other gentleman's wife, who was also a part of the business with them, and then the 2 other gentlemen. And we sat there and had a swearing match. And it was more or less just me saying, we want our company back. You guys have been sitting around doing nothing. You lied about everything. And they said, that's not how this works. It's not your company anymore. And so we did what any, I think, entrepreneurs should do, is we left and started again and vowed that we wouldn't give up control again because of that incident. But that was tough for us because, we were starting to make about 25,000 a month passive income, and, things were going well. And then we had to start over from scratch again. And I remember my wife just, saying to me, hey, don't worry, God's in charge. I'm like, yeah, I know. I said, but why do we have to go through this again? Like, we just went through this 2 years ago with our former company, and I was labeled the white devil. I was leaving there, and I'm so evil because now I'm creating this competing company, and now we have to do it all over again. But thank God we did. It was a blessing in disguise to not have those partners kind of holding us back. So.
Yeah, I like to stay here a little bit about in even that last comment that you just said, it was a blessing in disguise, and talk a little bit about mindset and thinking about when you're going through that tough moment, really, how to kind of get through it and how to use that negative stuff to your advantage. Again, we're on with Jamie Prickett. He's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Experior Financial Group. He's also the author of the best-selling book, You Can't Fall Off the Floor. The book is available everywhere. I think he still has it at 99 cents. Depending on when you're listening to this, but the book is available everywhere, both here in the United States as well as in Canada, because he's in Canada. If you'd like some more information about Jamie, you can check him out on Instagram. His Instagram is Experior_CEO. His Twitter account is Jamie_Prickett. And the last name is spelled Prickett. Or you could just go to jamieprickett.com where you can find out everything about him, his company, also, his book, and learn a little bit more about what he's doing. So, as entrepreneurs, we just do seem to lose more than we win. Talk about, again, you go through 10 years of your life with the practice company. You decide you're going to start your new thing. You're making 25 grand. I don't care when that was or when it is. That's still great money. And then you effectively just give it up and lose it and start over again. I know that you, through athletics, which is a big part of my life as well, and also just the mindset that you were kind of taught at the practice company. Talk about really what that was like. I mean, the stress, the anxiety. Were you scared? Did you feel like you couldn't do it again? Was your wife nervous? Were you looking at your kids and saying, man, like, what if this doesn't work? Like, talk about the real life aspect of that.
Yeah, it was, I've never been depressed before. So I never really understood people that suffered from depression. And I think it was God's way of showing me that you got to have a little more grace with folks that maybe struggled through this, because I never had any issues with that. I was always so positive and upbeat, and I kind of go from angry to happy, but I never got sad, and for the first time in my life, I felt what I believe depression really feels like. And I just wanted to lay in bed. I didn't want to move. It was really tough. And what I did is I picked up a book, who was actually an author, the guy that started the company that I was with for 10 years, who I have a lot of respect for, who built the company up in the 70s and 80s and did a great job. And I read the book and I started listening to some of the war stories that they went through to build their company into, today a multi-billion-dollar company traded on the stock exchange. And I was reading his stories. And as I was reading them, I was thinking to myself, Jamie, you're such a pansy. Snap out of it. Look what this guy went through. So many more heartaches than I had went through to get his company off the ground. Why do I think I'm better than him? Why do I think I'm not going to have those problems? And the more I read, the more I realize, the book Failing Forward, John Maxwell, which probably everyone here watching this has read. It just talks about failure after failure after failure. And when I started realizing that this is just a part of me eventually winning, I had this undeniable faith that I can win. It's just, this is the failing season for me. I also then realized that if I wanted to be good, I had to check my rebound time. I'll get down sometimes, but it usually lasts me about 2 minutes. It drives my wife crazy, because we can get in a fight and 3 minutes later, I forget what she's mad about. I have a short-term memory now, but I'm like that with everything in business too. I can have the worst news come at me, and within minutes, I'm able to shift out of that. And I think about, one of my favorite basketball players of all time, Dennis Rodman. He wasn't the best rebounder because he could jump the highest or because he was, stronger than everyone else. But even Shaquille O'Neal, 7'1", says that Dennis Rodman was the only man that could defend me. And Dennis Rodman only being 6'7", being able to defend Shaquille O'Neal. Why is that? Because he was tenacious. He was physical, and he jumped up and down 3 times before one of the players would jump up once. His rebound time was just like that. And I realized if I want to win, I got to be up way more than I'm down. And I find that too many people, they get kind of sucked into, it's okay to be down for a long period of time. And I understand there's grieving processes with death of loved ones, with business, corruption that happens in business, but you got to have a quick rebound time. And that's something that I've finally built that muscle. It didn't happen overnight, but I built a muscle where someone can say something to me and I'm just like, okay, what's next? Let's move on. It's took a while though, in the beginning, if someone said, I remember when we started our company, some of our competitors were laughing at me and saying, oh, that Jamie's a joke and that company's never going to get off the ground and blah, blah, blah. That used to hurt me and it would bother me for a few hours. And then I'd be stagnant and I'd be, then I'd go on YouTube or Facebook and fish around there and waste time for a while. Now, when someone says it, I'm like, bring it on, haters. I love it. It actually fuels me, but it wasn't always that way. I think you have to build kind of a rhino's thick skin to really handle some of the adversities that you're going to face in business.
In your book, you've said it a couple of times where some of the people, some of your kind of disciples, if you want to call them that, or some of your warriors that stuck around with you thought you were crazy. And still, even to this day, might even think you're a little wacky, and I kind of giggled because I think a lot of people might think that about me as well, but I also think that there is a delicate balance between realistic expectations and unrealistic optimism, right? Talk a little bit about that delicate balance there, because as entrepreneurs, we always want to be optimistic. We always want to be positive. But I also have seen a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, where my optimism just takes over the realistic, kind of matter at hand.
Yeah, I find that most affects people, especially when it comes to goal setting. On January 1st, we all set these crazy goals that we're going to 20x our business this year, and we're going to do this and that. And then when we have wins throughout the year, I'll give you an example. I was sharing with some of our team yesterday on a training that year over year, the first quarter of 2021 to the first quarter of 2022, we're up 50% in total business done. And to most entrepreneurs, that's great. And I got on and I said, now, how many of you think that's great? And people are like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm like, that sucks. I said, we should be 500% year over year. So it's almost like we don't take time to celebrate the little victories because we're so busy thinking so much bigger. And then we're disappointed rather than excited that, hey, our company's up 50% quarter over quarter. Or we start comparing ourselves with others, and, well, that company did this and that. But you don't know everything about that company. They might have had 500% growth, but they were worth $4 when they started, right? So it's really hard to measure yourself when you're always comparing to others. And I forget your question, Mike. What was the?
You answered. Well, it's about like as entrepreneurs, as a leader, like you are, as someone who has read all the books, the John Maxwell's. I'm looking at Napoleon Hill's book behind you, and I'm sure you've read a bunch of others. You've written a book, You Can't Fall Off the Floor. I find that we cling on to optimism because we need it. I mean, you talk about hope and faith in your book, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I also feel like there is a delicate balance between realistic expectations and unrealistic optimism. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think too many people are like, oh, it's just going to work out because I'm a good person. Or it's just going to work out because I'm due for a win. But that's just not how the world works, right? I mean, I know you're a man of faith, and you talk about hope, and I think hope is important, but I think a lot of people just hope for something that's never going to come unless you are realistic.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, even as a Christian myself, people say, well, I'm gonna pray about it, or I want to, and I believe in that. But, some people say, I'm praying for a miracle. I'm praying for God to do something big in my life. And it's like, well, he's got nothing to bless. You're not putting the work in, right? What's he going to bless? So it's counteract. It's not the right way of thinking. I think that you have to realize that this world, it's as messed up as it could be sometimes. It is fair for people that go out and are consistent. It's fair. I haven't met anyone in our business, and Mike, maybe in your world, talking to other folks, you might feel the same, but anyone that has been consistently doing the right activities in their business for a period of time, and that period of time might be 18 months, might be 18 years, but if they've done that consistently and they're doing the right activities daily, ultimately they will start to see some growth, and that growth might lead them down another path. See, those 10 years I struggled with my first company, I worked it. I wasn't sitting around struggling. I was working and struggling, largely because of the system, the name and the image of the company wasn't quite, what it was decades ago. So I had some challenges there, but I can honestly say I gave it everything I had and it didn't work out. But because I gave it everything I had, when I left to start our own venture, I just continued those same habits. People say, what did you do? What changed for you? And why are you having success now? Because we built a better system. We built a better model. We're more competitive in the marketplace today versus what they were maybe 40 years ago. But my work ethic hasn't changed. I still give this thing everything I got, and that's where some people just don't give it everything they got and they're waiting for the secret or the magic pill or whatever. And there's no such thing. It's hard work. There's so many talented people out there that don't do anything with their skills. There's so many educated people that are complete derelicts. They can't be successful because they're not willing to fail. You've heard before, Mike, that people that are C students end up having A students employed by them, right? Well, I'm a D student, so I don't know what that makes me, but I do know this, that a lot of times
59 GPA was I believe you had.
Yeah, 59. That was my average all through high school. And that doesn't count the classes that I failed. You got good memory. But I'll tell you what, when you think about this though, I didn't like school. That wasn't my thing, right? I know you're very educated, Mike, on the other hand, right? But it's not that education that got you to where you are. It's your tenacity, right? And I just think that why do A students work for C students, that whole myth or theory or whatever you can call it. I think there's a bit of truth to it, not a lot, but there is some truth to it. And that truth is this, that people that are A students, a lot of times it's because they don't want to fail. So they work really hard. So they don't want to look bad. They don't want their parents to look down on them. They don't want their teacher or their peers to look down on them. So now when they get in the real world, they don't want to get looked down on. So they're afraid to fail because they're so used to excelling in academics, for example. And then they have those challenges in being an entrepreneur because you can get a job where it's safe, apparently, or you can start a business where it's nothing but risk. And they're afraid of that failure. So
yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. As I was almost in a bit of a trance state thinking about failure because a lot of people talk about, I mean, the title of your book, You Can't Fall Off the Floor, just the title in and of itself, because you were kind of, down and out, and then you built this massive, massive company. In a second, I want to talk to you about, man, I got a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, but one thing that really also resonated with me and it hit me kind of hard is you have a blended family. I believe you have 4 kids blended. Some of them have had some actual physical challenges, with I think one of your kids might have had kidney failure, and then others have had addiction challenges, which resonated with me and my family. And I want to talk about this work-life balance and building a company in just a second. Again, we're on with Jamie Prickett. He's the co-founder of a company called Xperia Financial Group. It's one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing, financial services company in Canada, now also here in the United States. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling book, You Can't Fall Off the Floor. The book is available everywhere. If you'd like some more information about Jamie, you just go to jamieprickett.com. You can check him out on Instagram. His Instagram is Xperia_CEO. But really, if you just go to jamieprickett.com, you can learn all about him, about his business, and what he's doing.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be wicked happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.
You touch upon something really interesting, and I was just talking to somebody else about this before you and I got on, which is this, this kind of this work-life balance. And also when your kids need you was something that was really interesting. You talked about, your kids need you now. Talk a little bit about, one, how can you work through, how can you build a business like you did? Like you built this massive business really on a shoestring budget, with 4 kids and the whole thing. And how do you make that work, man?
Well, I made big mistakes in my 20s because I had two kids really young, got divorced really young, and was a part-time dad weekends, and even on the weekends, I'd have them with a nanny or half the time. And when I say nanny, it was more like a friend that helped, stay at the house and help me clean and different things like that. And it's the one regret. If I have a regret, it's that I wasn't there for my 2 oldest children when they needed me as a child. Our daughter, Takia, who's now turning 11 next month, she doesn't know that world. She doesn't know a broken home. She doesn't know a dad that's not there because he's always working. And the reason that we were able to do it is because we prioritize. Last night I had people messaging me right before 5:30, and I had to message the back saying, "Sorry, can't talk. I'm going on date night." Every Wednesday night, shut the phone down Wednesday night, because Wednesday is the middle of the week. And that's where I can honor my wife the most, to show her, hey, I'm willing to shut her down in the middle of the week. It's easy to take a date night on Saturday night because not many people are calling as much. But Wednesday night's the middle of the week. So my wife and I set that date, and we've been doing that for, I think, 5 or 6 years now, where we just shut her down one night a week. And then we do the same if we're going to do something on a Sunday, with our kids or with the family or whatever. We just shut her down. And we've learned that if I'm on a client meeting, this meeting with you right now, we're going to be here for an hour or so. And if I have phone calls that are coming in and stuff like that, I'm not showing you the respect that you deserve during this meeting. So I shut my phone off or turn it on silent, and I turn it upside down so I don't see it. So it's not distracting me. Well, we have to do that with our family too. Because how much more important is my wife than Mike Alden? No offense, but you know what I'm saying? And we don't do that. And that's something that it took me forever to learn, way longer than I wish it did. But my advice to entrepreneurs out there, particular future entrepreneurs, is treat your spouse and your kids like you would treat your most important client, because they're far more important than that. And that's kind of the advice I can give on that. At the same time, there are sacrifices you have to make. Tonight, and not that there's a sacrifice, I love what I do, but I had to tell my wife, hey babe, no supper for me tonight because I'm at the office late. I've got another guy coming and we're going to be on meetings all night. But it's not like that every night. But the nights that I'm home, be present with your family.
Yeah, that last thing you said is be present. I think it's something that we all need to work on, including myself. And I remember I had a therapist actually say to me, look, sometimes you just have to be. I didn't know what she meant, and she's like, you just have to be like truly, be present. And that's such, great sound advice. So, you've built this company and it's growing like you said, year over year. I think you said 50% in one quarter, and you weren't happy with that. Talk about, the importance of learning from your past experiences at the practice company and what not to do, and then taking even some of those things that they did, maybe they did a decent job at, and doing a better job. Basically what I'm asking is the importance of systems and processes within a business.
Yeah. When we started the company, someone just asked me this yesterday. They said, how did you put it together? A couple of days ago, they said, how did you know how to put it together? And I said, well, it actually wasn't that hard. I was an agent for 10 years. What would I want in a company as an agent? What would the ultimate company look like? What would the comp plan look like? Being realistic and what's able to be paid to the field and stuff like that. And that's how we designed it. We're just like, what's perfect? What would we want? What would we be attracted to? And we do the same thing. Just yesterday, I was on one of our executive director meetings with all of our top leaders across the countries. And I asked them, I said, guys, some of you are doing amazing at recruiting and building and selling and all that. I said, but I want to ask you all a question, because about 2/3 of you aren't having the same success as 1/3. And I went through some of the numbers. I said, what can I do for the 2/3 of y'all that don't have things going? What can I do? Right? See, as a great leader, it's on you. It's your fault. The business isn't succeeding. It's your fault. On the other side, if the business is succeeding, it's their reason for succeeding. So always putting the growth and the excitement to your field force or your executive committee or your employees and your staff. Give them the credit for the success, and you take responsibility for the failures. If you don't take responsibility for the failures and you're always pointing a finger at someone, we've all heard that you got 3 pointing back at you, but take that one step further. If I'm pointing at someone else and saying they're the reason we're not having success, or it's because of this system or because of this technology or this IT department or because of this commissions department, whatever, if I'm pointing the finger at somebody, that means I've given them control over that point of my life. I've given them control. I'm allowing them to be the reason I'm failing, and I have no control over them. I can only control myself. So I take personal responsibility for everything bad that happens in our business, and I give the credit to everyone else that's helping it be successful, even though I'm a big part of that, of course. But you got to give the credit to people and then take the blame yourself. Doesn't mean that some people don't need called out. They're screwing up. They got something going on, whatever. You got to call people out sometimes in a respectful way. I always do my best. I'm not perfect, but if I ever have to criticize somebody, you damn sure I'm doing it in private with them one-on-one. And if I'm ever going to recognize somebody, I always want to do it with an audience.
How important, I'm looking at your background, and I think that's George St. Pierre, and there's a story in your book about that. I think some of your team members gave you that. Yeah. By the way, I have a great story about George St. Pierre. I met him in an elevator.
Oh, cool.
But I couldn't remember his name. And I was like, and it was like right after like a big fight too, with him in it. And I was like, wait, you're that. Yeah. But anyway, so talk a little bit about the importance, and it seems like it really has been important to your life. And it's been important in my life. It kept me in line and kept me out of jail. The importance of athletics in your life and the direction that your life has gone in? Like, how important was wrestling really for your life and really kind of created who you are today?
It was everything to me. I grew up in a family. Dad worked a lot. Mom, she also worked outside of the home, but middle income family, nothing special. Great parents. I love them. And I went to high school, and I actually grade 7, 8. I started wrestling, and I was like the short, chubby kid. I remember I couldn't do any running. I wasn't good at jumping, none of that stuff. I'm 5'7", and I ended up getting into wrestling, and I got pretty good at it. My dad wrestled years ago, so it was kind of like, yeah, I should wrestle like my dad did, and my dad dropped out in grade 10 or 11, I believe. So he never went on far with the wrestling, but it was always something that he talked about. He had some medals and stuff like that. So when I got into wrestling, I remember my coach was, old school. He was actually the same coach that coached my dad in wrestling in high school. And he was the kind of guy where he would swear at us. And I mean, you couldn't get away with half the stuff he does now. And it was even worse when my dad was there. And I remember one time I was rolling up the mats, and I'm kind of bent over and I had my shirt off after a hard practice. I must have been in grade 10. Yeah, because he retired right when I was in grade 10. And he grabs me by my fat and he goes, "What the F is this, Prickett? What's this, Prickett?" He grabs my fat, right? I'm like, I'm done working on it. He goes, "You lose that, you chubby little bugger," right? I'm like, yeah. And now some people would have devastated them. But for me, I knew how much he loved me. I knew that when he was coaching me on the side of the mat, it was like a father figure wanting to see you succeed. So he didn't do that to make fun of me for being fat. He did that because he knew I could probably go into a lighter weight class, maybe have more success, right? And I'll never forget that coach. I absolutely adore him for what he taught me. And then I went on to the university club where I trained with as a senior in wrestling. I wasn't in the university, but I trained there. And I remember the coaches there. One of them was super nice and encouraging, and the other one was like hard ass, kind of like my high school coach. And I always gravitated towards the hard ass. I loved it when I'd be sucking wind on the side of the mat. He'd be like, "Get up, Prickett, you pansy." He goes, "You think your competitors are going to be sucking wind and sitting at the side?" I was like, "Yeah, you're right. That, I don't know. I took really well to that kind of tough coaching. Fast forward in business, I was kind of a tough coach. And I realized that, they say treat everyone the same. Bull. You can't treat everyone the same.
Right.
See, if that coach had done that to Billy Bob over here, Billy Bob might have been devastated. But you know what? My coaches knew who they could press in certain ways and how they'd have to coach someone else. So they had people that maybe weren't as thick-skinned like I was and needed more loving and, hugging and stuff like that. But you got to treat people to how they'll receive you, right? So I'm not a tough coach anymore with everybody. There are people that I can be a tough coach with, but you get to know them. And I think a lot of that tough coaching comes through the love that you show them, that they know that you're saying it for their betterment, not just because you're being a jerk.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think about you and I are very similar in that sense. A lot of my coaches were very tough on me. In fact, when you mentioned the fat thing, I remember being in college, and I played Division II football, and it was kind of serious. And I remember sitting down with one of my coaches after I had like a complete body fat test, and he says, "You realize you have about 25 pounds of fat on your body, right?" And I was like, I was a linebacker. I was like, "What? No, what are you talking about?" He's, yeah, we gotta get rid of that, it didn't feel good when he told me, but if I wanted to play, then I needed to get in better shape. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to hear that, kind of that negative stuff. So, let's talk about the insurance industry. I sold cars right out of college. I think my story a little bit. I was recruited to sell insurance back in the day. I'm kind of in that world a little bit now. You've been doing it for a long time. Talk about this industry, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and why it's good for people, why it's an option for people, even people who don't think of themselves as like a salesperson.
Yeah. For me, we've really built our model around education, like teaching people, because a lot of people, they just sell whatever product is the quickest to sell, the fastest underwriting process. Agents, a lot of them, they just want to sell to make the commission. And I'm preaching about, it's mission before commission. We got to do what's right by families. We got to help them out and shop the market and do the job. And it might take a little bit of extra time, but you're going to have a client for life versus a client that's going to churn and burn, the next month because you push them into something. I love this industry. I think it's, one of the most noble professions. Some people in the eye of the public, it's kind of down there with used car salesmen and life insurance agents. It's not really an esteemed profession. So I look at it more like we're financial educators. We're out there teaching people. We show them ways to get out of debt and how to plan their retirement. I mean, we've got so many tools that we've given to our agents so that they're not just another insurance agent. But this industry in itself, regardless of what company someone works for, you can make great income. And for me, what really changed my life was my first death claim. It came years after I was in the industry. And when you pay that first death claim to a single mom who just lost her husband at 40 years of age, who has 3 young children that were 11, 10, and 9, when I paid that death claim, it was like, I get goosebumps now talking about it. That changed my life. I mean, it was like, I am here for a reason. I'm not here just to peddle life insurance and make, commissions. That's a part of it. Yes, you can make a great income. But I'll tell you that for me, I love this industry. I absolutely love it. What I don't like about it, the ugly is, too many, I would say, agents that are money hungry, and all they think about is commissions. All they think about is what's the quickest way to get paid. They'll stab their best friend in the back just to make the sale before them if they can scoop up a client. I've seen that firsthand. I've seen crooks that have come through our company that we've ultimately terminated, or they left before we figured out that they were crooks. They're all over, man. In Canada, especially, the regulations are so strict right now. There's like 3 sets of extra documentation that every agent needs to go through before making a sale with a customer. Advisor disclosures, things like this, which doesn't exist in the US, right? We're not seeing that. So on this side, we feel like we've really prepared ourselves because we've bulletproofed it with the compliance regimens that are part of the Canadian operation. Going into the US, we're like, man, this is the Wild West. You pretty much do whatever you want. And sure enough, we're seeing agents pretty much doing whatever they want, but we still run a very tight ship, and we do take compliance very seriously. Because if you're not doing that, if you're not monitoring the agents and their activities and what they're doing, they could be out there taking advantage of people, and the company's going to be left holding the bag. And we've seen that, if you could Google insurance company lawsuits or IMO MGA lawsuits, they're all over the place. And one thing we're super proud about, having over 1,800 licensed agents, knock on wood, we haven't had a single errors and omissions claim as a company, which is virtually unheard of for a company to go 1 year our size, let alone the 8 years our size without that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I tend to go down rabbit holes.
No, man, I loved it. It was great. You said something too. That it's a noble profession. I have a mentor of mine. Actually, this room I'm sitting in, it used to be just a voiceover room, and he was the one who told me we should turn it into a podcast studio. This was 8 years ago, and I had no idea that he built his life on selling insurance. And he's the one who said to me, he says, Mike, I was telling him what we're doing, and he says, I believe it is one of the most noble professions there is because of what you just said. It's interesting though, right? When people think about insurance, they think about it when they need it. They never think about it before, right? And they do there is a negative connotation to insurance and car sales. That's why I brought up the car sales, because I did car sales right out of the gate. But for me, when I was selling cars, and I think a lot of maybe of your agents, and maybe this even happened with you, it was the education that I was given on how to sell properly, and even some of that mindset stuff where, I was taught, to think a certain way. And you touched upon that a little bit in your book about how, that's a big part of what you're doing. I think you even say, even if they were to leave Experior, they leave with just a whole new different perspective on life. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. What you guys are doing. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the United States, and maybe even what type of insurance we're talking about. I know we don't have a lot of time with you in a second. Again, we're on with Jamie Prickett. He's the co-founder and CEO of a company called Experior Financial. You can check him out at jamieprickett.com. That's with 2 T's. He's the author of the book, You Can't Fall Off the Floor. Look, as an author myself, and I've read a bunch of books, and I get books sent to me all the time. I read almost half of it last night. It was late at night too, so I'll probably finish it today. It's a great book. It's a great story. And it's inspiring because of, if you really understand where he was 10 years ago and where he is now. He didn't really talk a little bit about it, but he was driving a beat up car without a muffler. Now he has a McLaren. And if you know anything about cars, it's a pretty nice car, and a Bentley and everything else in between. He's not a flashy guy. Neither am I, but it's nice to mention. So, all right. So we're talking insurance, and there's different types of insurance: homeowners insurance, car insurance, health insurance, life insurance. What have you really been focused on? What does your company really excel in?
Life insurance would be the number one, obviously, seller in the US. In Canada, it's a good mix of investments and insurance. I would say the products primarily on the US side right now, we're having a lot of success with indexed universal life. And one thing that we wanted to make sure is that our agents were structuring the plans properly, because there's some yahoos out there that'll just throw it against the wall, see what sticks. So we're very much educating agents on how these products work, how you can build a tax-free retirement by using these plans is absolutely phenomenal. If I was an American myself, I would be buying one of these products. They're actually not available in Canada. We have some similar products, but they don't quite operate the way that the Index Universal Life does in the US. And of course, we're offering a ton of term insurance. The company I came from, all they sold was term. So I'm a big believer of buy term and invest the difference. But challenge with a lot of folks is they buy term and spend the difference. At the end of their term policies, they got nothing left, and they still wish they had coverage. The story of term insurance is that after 20 or 30 years, you should be self-insured. Well, we all know how that's going, right? As the house prices increase, as the debt loads increase, people are refinancing and then refinancing again and refinancing again every 2.5 years. So people are carrying on bigger and bigger debt loads. And after 20 years of a term or 30 years of a term, most people, not all, but most, are in the same or worse financial situation than they were when they first purchased that product. So we're really educating people about, if you want to purchase a term product, let's make sure you're self-insured at the end of 20, 30 so years. Otherwise, we better look at something that's going to last you a lifetime. And for me personally, as I've seen our net worth increase and the estate that we're going to be passing on to our family, we realize that permanent protection is a need, right? It is something. So I personally haven't sold any permanent insurance, universal life insurance to clients, because I was still in the term world for many years, even as we were growing Experior. But I have sold 2 whole life policies and a universal life policy, but I sold them to myself, right? So all my friends from my former company that would say I'm evil because I offer other products other than term, don't worry. The only time I offered it to someone was to myself, because I do see the value in it and I see what it can do for people. And many of our agents, thank God, they're more educated than me, so they figured it out a lot quicker.
So if someone's listening right now, maybe they've even read your book. They like you. I mean, how can you not? They're inspired. They're looking for something, new in their life. They're looking to change their career. How do they do that? How do they reach out to you? How does it work? How does someone come into your company? And I guess let's do both. Let's do Canada and United States.
Yeah, well, for either side, if they're watching this video, feel free to, send me a link or send me an email to jamie@experiorfinancial.ca, or add me on Facebook. You can do Instagram and all that. I know you mentioned I'm still trying to figure out how to use Instagram. I'm older, so I guess I'm a Facebook guy. So add me on Facebook, friend me, send me a message. And what I'll normally do is kind of vet and see, if you have experience in the industry already. Or are you new as a greenie? Because I have different executive directors across both Canada and the US that I would refer you to, so that you'd have someone that you could work with local to wherever you are. We have agents in 45 states now and every province across Canada. So we've got a great market and great folks that people can work with, but they can certainly reach out to me and go from there.
What if people aren't licensed and they're interested in the career? Do you have a path for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Last month, I think we had onboarded 300 or 400 new agents, and I would say 80% of them don't have a license. They're coming through us for the first time to get set up with their licensing and going through the course and stuff like that.
And here in the United States, I am licensed now. That's the kind of one we and I were talking about that. Depending on your state, you have to take a couple tests or one test, right? That's how it works, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, listen, man, you are an inspiring guy. I really love the book. It's again, the title of the book is "You Can't Fall Off the Floor" by Jamie Prickett. If you'd like some more information about Jamie, you can go to jamieprickett.com. It's JamiePrickett.com. If you want some more information about Jamie or even his company, Experior Financial Group, whether you're here in the United States or whether you're in Canada and you're like, hey, you know what, maybe I want to give this thing a shot. You can, we haven't really talked a lot about it, but and Jamie does talk about it in his book. One of the greatest things that his company offers is that you don't have to change your career immediately. You can come into the business, learn the business. In fact, he tells a couple of great stories about that, learn the business, and then decide ultimately if it's something you do want to do full time. That to me is such a great benefit. So you don't have to drop something that you are just paying your bills. Maybe you want to do something that can really take you to a whole nother level. You can just, again, go to jamieprickett.com. Jamie, thanks so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate you. My name is Mike Alden. That's Jamie Prickett, and we'll see you soon.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Wicked Happy. The way you live your life depends on your outlook, and theirs is simple. Be wicked happy. Wicked Happy provides you with apparel to make you smile. So if you want to be wicked happy and you want to look wicked cool, then visit wickedhappy.com, and at checkout, enter in the code RADIO for an additional 15% off your entire order. Again, visit wickedhappy.com, apparel to make you smile.